Montreal is a city in the Canadian province of Quebec. It is the largest city in the province, the second largest in Canada and the ninth largest in North America. Originally called Ville Marie, or City of Mary, it is named after Mount Royal, the triple-peaked hill in the heart of the city. The city is on the island of Montreal, which took its name from the same source as the city, and a few much smaller peripheral islands, the largest of which is Isle Bizard. In 2011, the city had a population of 1,649,519. Montreal's metropolitan area had a population of 3,824,221 and a population of 1,886,481 in the urban agglomeration. All of the municipalities on the island of Montreal included. The 2014 estimate of the population of the metropolitan area of Montreal is 4.1 million. French is the city's official language and is the language spoken at home by 56.9% of the population of the city, followed by English at 18.6% and 19.8% other languages. In the larger Montreal census metropolitan area, 67.9% of the population speaks French at home, compared to 16.5% who speak English. Montreal is one of the most bilingual cities in Quebec and Canada, with 56% of the population able to speak both English and French. Montreal is the second largest primarily French-speaking city in the world, after Paris. Montreal was named a UNESCO City of Design. Historically the commercial capital of Canada, it was surpassed in population and economic strength by Toronto in the 1970s. It remains an important center of commerce, aerospace, finance, pharmaceuticals, technology, design, culture, tourism, gaming, film and world affairs. In August 2015, The Economist Intelligence Unit's Global Livability Ranking placed Montreal 14th out of 140 cities. In 2009, Montreal was named North America's leading host city for international association events. According to the 2009 preliminary rankings of the International Congress and Convention Association, the 2016 edition of QS Best Student Cities ranked Montreal the 7th best city in the world to be a university student. Etymology. Originally called Ville Marie, or City of Mary, it is named after Mount Royal, the triple-peaked hill in the heart of the city. According to one theory, the name derives from Montréal, as it was spelled in Middle French, but Cartier's 1535 diary entry, naming the mountain, refers to Le Mont Royal. Another argument, mentioned by the Government of Canada on its website concerning Canadian place names, is that the name was adopted as it is written nowadays because an early map of 1556 used the Italian name of the mountain, Montreal. History. Pre-European contact archaeological evidence demonstrates that First Nations native people occupied the island of Montreal as early as 4,000 years ago. By the year AD 1000, they had started to cultivate maize. Within a few hundred years, they had built fortified villages. The St. Lawrence Iroquoians, an ethnicity distinct from the Iroquois nations of the Haudenosaunee then based in present-day New York, established the village of Hochelaga at the foot of Mount Royal 2 centuries before the French arrived. Archaeologists have found evidence of their habitation there and at other locations in the valley since at least the 14th century. The French explorer Jacques Cartier visited Hochelaga on October 2, 1535, and estimated the population of the native people at Hochelaga to be over 1,000 people. La Place Royale 70 years later. The French explorer Samuel de Champlain reported that the St. Lawrence Iroquoians and their settlements had disappeared altogether from the St. Lawrence Valley. This is believed due to outmigration, epidemic of European diseases, or intertribal wars. In 1611 Champlain established a fur trading post on the island of Montreal, on a site initially named La Place Royale, at the confluence of Petite Rivière and St. Lawrence River. It is where present-day Pointe-à-Calera stands. In 1639 Jérôme Leroy de la Dauvergerie obtained the seigneurial title to the island of Montreal in the name of the Société de Notre-Dame de Montréal to establish a Roman Catholic mission to evangelize natives. Ville-Marie Dauvergerie hired Paul Chomedy de Maisonneuve, then 30, to lead a group of colonists to build a mission on his new seigneury. The colonists left France in 1641 for Quebec, and arrived on the island the following year. On May 17, 1642, Ville-Marie was founded on the southern shore of Montreal Island, with Maisonneuve as its first governor. The settlement included a chapel and a hospital, under the command of Jean Mance. By 1643, Ville-Marie had already been hit by Iroquois raids. In the spring of 1651, the Iroquois attacks became so frequent and so violent that Ville-Marie thought its end had come. Maisonneuve made all the settlers take refuge in the fort. By 1652, the colony at Montreal had been so reduced that he was forced to return to France to raise 100 volunteers to go with him to the colony the following year. If the effort had failed, Montreal was to be abandoned and the survivors relocated downriver to Quebec City. Before these 100 arrived in the fall of 1653, the population of Montreal was barely 50 people. By 1685, Ville-Marie was home to some 600 colonists, most of them living in modest wooden houses. Ville-Marie became a centre for the fur trade and a base for further French exploration. In 1689, the English allied Iroquois attacked Lachine on the island of Montreal, committing the worst massacre in the history of New France. By the early 18th century, the Sulpician order was established there. To encourage French settlement, they wanted the Mohawk to move away from the fur trading post at Ville-Marie. They had a mission village, known as Carnuake, south of the St. Lawrence River. The fathers persuaded some Mohawk to make a new settlement at their former hunting grounds north of the Ottawa River. This became Kanesatake. In 1745, several Mohawk families moved upriver to create another settlement, known as Aquisawn. All three are now Mohawk reserves in Canada. The Canadian territory was ruled as a French colony until 1760, when it was surrendered to Great Britain after the 7 Years' War. Ville-Marie was the name for the settlement that appeared in all official documents until 1705, when Montreal appeared for the first time. Although people referred to the island of Montreal long before then, modern history Montreal was incorporated as a city in 1832. The opening of the Lachine Canal permitted ships to bypass the unnavigable Lachine Rapids, while the construction of the Victoria Bridge established Montreal as a major railway hub. The leaders of Montreal's business community had started to build their homes in the Golden Square Mile from about 1850. By 1860, it was the largest municipality in British North America and the undisputed economic and cultural centre of Canada. Montreal was the capital of the province of Canada from 1844 to 1849, but lost its status when a Tory mob burnt down the Parliament building to protest the passage of the Rebellion Losses Bill. For strategic reasons, the government established Ottawa as the capital, as it was located more in the interior of the nation. An internment camp was set up at Immigration Hall in Montreal from August 1914 to November 1918. After World War I, the Prohibition movement in the United States led to Montreal becoming a destination for Americans looking for alcohol. Unemployment remained high in the city, and was exacerbated by the stock market crash of 1929 and the Great Depression. During World War II, Mayor Camillien Houde protested against conscription and urged Montrealers to disobey the federal government's registry of all men and women. The government at Ottawa was furious over Houde's stand and held him at a prison camp until 1944. That year the government decided to institute conscription to be able to expand the armed forces. Montreal was the official residence of the Luxembourg royal family in exile during World War II. By 1951, Montreal's population had surpassed 1 million. The St. Lawrence Seaway opened in 1959, allowing vessels to bypass Montreal. In time, this development led to the end of the city's economic dominance as businesses moved to other areas. During the 1960s there was continued growth, including the World's Fair known as Expo 67, and the construction of Canada's tallest skyscrapers, new expressways and the subway system known as the Montreal Metro. The 1970s ushered in a period of wide-ranging social and political changes, stemming largely from the concerns of the French-speaking majority about the conservation of their culture and language. Given the traditional predominance of the English-Canadian minority in the business arena, the October Crisis and the 1976 election of the party QUE-COIS, supporting sovereign status for Quebec, resulted in the departure of many businesses and people from the city. In 1976, Montreal was the host of the Olympics. During the 1980s and early 1990s, Montreal experienced a slower rate of economic growth than many other major Canadian cities. Montreal was merged with the 27 surrounding municipalities on the island of Montreal on January 1, 2002, creating a unified city covering the entire island. There was great resistance from the suburbs to the merger, with the perception being that it was forced on the mostly English suburbs by the party QUE-COIS. As expected, this move proved unpopular and several mergers were later rescinded. Several former municipalities, totaling 13% of the population of the island, voted to leave the unified city in separate referendums in June 2004. The demerger took place on January 1, 2006, leaving 15 municipalities on the island, including Montreal. The merged municipalities remain affiliated with the city through an agglomeration council that collects taxes from them to pay for numerous shared services. The 2002 mergers were not the first in the city's history. The 21st century has brought with it a revival of the city's economic and cultural landscape, the construction of new residential skyscrapers, 2 super hospitals, the creation of the Quartier des Spectacles, reconstruction of the Turcotte interchange, reconfiguration of the Décarie and Dorval interchanges, gentrification of Griffintown, subway line extensions and the purchase of new subway cars, the complete revitalization and expansion of Montreal Trudeau International Airport, the completion of Quebec Autoroute 30, and the construction of a new toll bridge to Laval are helping Montreal continue to grow. Geography. Montreal is in the southwest of the province of Quebec. The city covers most of the island of Montreal at the confluence of the St. Lawrence and Ottawa rivers. The port of Montreal lies at one end of the St. Lawrence Seaway, the river gateway that stretches from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic. Montreal is defined by its location between the St. Lawrence River to its south and the Rivière des Prairies to its north. Montreal is at the center of the Montreal metropolitan community, and is bordered by the city of Laval to the north, Longueuil, Saint-Lambert, Brossard, and other municipalities to the south, Repentigny to the east and the West Island municipalities to the west. The Anglophone enclaves of Westmount, Montreal West, Hampstead, Côte-Saint-Luc, the town of Mount Royal and the Francophone enclave Montreal East are all surrounded by Montreal Climate. Montreal lies in a transition between the warm summer and hot summer humid continental climate zones. Summers are, on the whole, warm and humid with a daily maximum average of 26 to 27 degrees Celsius in July. Temperatures in excess of 30 degrees Celsius are common. Conversely, cold fronts can bring crisp, drier and windy weather in the early and later parts of summer. Winter brings cold, snowy, windy, and, at times, icy weather, with the daily average ranging from -9 to -10.5 degrees Celsius in January. However, some winter days rise above freezing, allowing for rain on an average of 4 days in January and February each. Usually, snow covering some or all bare ground lasts on average from the first or second week of December until the last week of March. While the air temperature does not fall below -30 degrees Celsius every year, the wind chill often makes the temperature feel this low to exposed skin. Spring and fall are pleasantly mild but prone to drastic temperature changes, spring even more so than fall. Late-season heat waves as well as Indian summers are possible. Early and late-season snowstorms can occur in November and March, and more rarely in April. Montreal is generally snow-free from April 15th to November 15th. The lowest temperature in Environment Canada's books was -37.8 degrees Celsius on January 15, 1957, and the highest temperature was 37.6 degrees Celsius on August 1, 1975, both at Dorval International Airport. Before modern weather record-keeping, a minimum temperature almost 5 degrees lower was recorded at 7 a.m. on January 10, 1859, where it registered at -42 degrees Celsius. Annual precipitation is around 1,000 millimeters, including an average of about 210 centimeters of snowfall, which occurs from November through March. Thunderstorms are common in the period beginning in late spring through summer to early fall. Additionally, tropical storms or their remnants can cause heavy rains and gales. Montreal averages 2,050 hours of sunshine annually, with summer being the sunniest season, though slightly wetter than the others in terms of total precipitation, mostly from thunderstorms. Architecture. For over a century and a half, Montreal was the industrial and financial centre of Canada. The variety of buildings included factories, elevators, warehouses, mills, and refineries, which today provide a legacy of historic and architectural interest, especially in the downtown area and the Old Port area. There are 50 National Historic Sites of Canada, more than any other city. There are many historic buildings in Old Montreal in their original form: Notre Dame de Montréal Basilica, Bonsecours Market, and the impressive 19th-century headquarters of all major Canadian banks on St. James Street. St. Joseph's Oratory, completed in 1967, Ernest Cormier's Art Deco Université de Montréal main building, the landmark Place Ville-Marie Office Tower, the controversial Olympic Stadium and surrounding structures are but a few notable examples of 20th-century architecture. Pavilions designed for the 1967 International and Universal Exposition, popularly known as Expo 67, featured a wide range of architectural designs. Though most pavilions were temporary structures, several have become landmarks, including the geodesic Dome U.S. Pavilion, now the Montreal Biosphere, and Moshe Safdie's striking Habitat 67 apartment complex. The Montreal Metro has public artwork by some of the biggest names in Quebec culture. In 2006, Montreal was named a UNESCO City of Design, only one of 3 design capitals of the world. This distinguished title recognizes Montreal's design community. Since 2005, the city has been home for the International Council of Graphic Design Associations, the International Design Alliance. The underground city is the set of interconnected complexes in and around downtown.